Hey, everybody, welcome back again to National Freelance Business Week. And what we have going on, we're going to talk to the organizers out in Miami, Florida. Welcome, Matt. Welcome, Livio. How is
Hello.
life in Miami?
Pretty sunny, I would say, as of now in the
Okay.
middle of March, spring break. All is good here.
Un- Understatement. Very, very sunny. Except, Livy, I don't know if you noticed today, we had a 2 minute insane like thunder rainstorm. I got caught in the middle of it.
Oh well, yeah, that also happens in South Florida. We just get like random burst of rain here
Yeah.
and there. But other than that, it's pretty good. Can't really complain.
Nice. Yeah, I wonder if that's what we got a couple of nights ago. We had tornadoes in the area. I mean, it was crazy. In fact, we have a couple of friends that they're like going, "Hey, we need some help with our property. Tornado came through or whatever." It's like going, "What?" Because we're kind of making fun of it because it's we never get tornadoes here. So yeah, lesson learned. So freelance business week, Miami, going from all virtual the last couple of years to hybrid, or is it all going to be in person? What's it going to be like?
yeah,
We're gonna try to do all in person, right, Livio? You want to kick us off?
yeah. We definitely want to do it all in person. The way that we see it over here is that Miami has a very thriving business community. It's a very business
Mm-hmm.
positive city. So anyone who really has any opportunity to do an interest or an endeavor to do business or start a business, Miami's a great place to do it because of its very diverse community. It's very easy to kind of niche down or find different communities or different industries that are also very close to each other and intersecting with each other. And this also, that, and freelancers thrive in places where different industries intersect with each other, especially digital industries.
Yep.
And one thing that we see a very big theme in Miami is that even though there's a very big opportunity here because even though there is a thriving business community, regardless of what level of enterprise, small business, solopreneur business we're talking about, there isn't really a gathering place for freelancers to say like, hey, freelancers, come over here, congregate with each other,
Yeah.
share your experiences, and be proud of the fact that you're a freelancer. Um,
Yes.
so something that we're trying to do by making this in person is to bring all those freelancers together and say, "Hey, come meet other freelancers who maybe do totally different things or totally unrelated things to what you do, but even then enjoy a sort of similar or several aspects of that freelancer lifestyle that is very distinct from our craft and our work." So our big goal is to just really plant a flag and bring a lot of people together that probably haven't ever met before.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that freelance business week. It's probably one of my favorite parts is that, especially getting back to our roots of the local city organizers bringing in-person stuff. And some cities, are not quite as far along as Miami is, Austin, stuff like that, where we can kind of begin to remove, at least for a moment, the isolation. Because to your point, one of the things that we definitely all have in common is the way our businesses run. We all
Yeah.
have the taxes and the bookkeeping and the things. So
And Miami's kind of unique in a way where it's like it's very loud, but then at the same time it's very noisy. So it's really tough to pick apart like the whatever the inside from the noise. And so as a freelancer, there's so much you can do, but you don't know which relates to you. And so there's technically like Miami Tech. There's a bunch of other communities, but yeah, you don't really know as a freelancer. And sometimes when you go to these, the events are huge, but there's not necessarily like a focus, right? Like it'll be like, hey, this is a tech event, but then it's more of like a party happy hour. So it
Yeah.
comes down to like trying to meet the right people, but then you meet someone and it's like, oh, I'm here from New York for the weekend, and you're like, okay, I'm here to meet freelancers, right? Or I'm here to meet like
right.
even a specific industry. So, back to Livio's point of like, let's get it all under one roof so that if you are a freelancer in Miami, you know the community to go to rather than sort of having to feel like you're overwhelmed with all the noise surrounding this place.
Very nice. So how are you guys going to do that? I mean, other than this is an event that and freelancers are invited, of course. Buy a ticket, sign up for a ticket. What is the mechanism that the attendees could look for, maybe in the ticket platform, in the agenda platform, that would help me know that I want to go to this one because it's it's my people. Is there a mechanism you guys are going to use to do that?
Yeah, so the way that we have a series of kind of like a series of events throughout the week, each event on a different day, of course, with a slightly different a slightly different format. One of the events that we definitely want to do is a community roundtable. Where we're going to bring together some of the business leaders or who understand the economic value and economic opportunity that exists in Miami and nowhere else really, and how that economic opportunity applies to freelancers, and just have an open discussion about that, inviting the public, of course. Something else we want to do more of a casual co-working session. That would be in one of our favorite places called Pure Roast. Here in Miami. It's a wonderful coffee shop. They serve low acid coffee, just so other freelancers can come and gather and say, hey, we're here to meet other freelancers working through Freelance Business Week. And then also we want to have Matt, what else do you want to?
Yeah. I think what's unique is we're kind of separating it like in the like from a strategy perspective. There's like three like real parts to it. And it's high level, it's tactical, and it's realistic. And so from a high level perspective, like we're starting off by having community roundtable. So why are we even caring about the freelance economy? Livio is always super focused on like freelance as a force for good. And so Miami is a place where there's actually lots of problems. The rents are getting insanely high. A lot of people that work here are getting displaced. And so we're going to sit and have a real sort of high level conversation of this is more than just, a gig. This is actually something that we can do for the community for good. So then we have that. And then when we talk about tactical, we're talking about the fact that this isn't going to be like a freelancer who's a freelance coach sitting on the top of a stage telling people how to be successful, aka just like a self-help author for freelancers. So F that. We're doing more tactical workshops. And then in terms of realistic, like we're freelancers, but we're also, we have other things, right? We might have families. Some freelancers might have a full-time job. And so we're not going to do something that's from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We're going to do something that's after work or fits more towards your schedule. So I think that's sort of the way we're approaching it is, it's high level, it's tactical, and it's realistic. Which the realistic is funny because if you look at Miami, 90% of it is rented, meaning the cars, the boats, you name it. So it's not exactly the most realistic place. So we're going to try to kind of change a little bit of that.
Is it realistic?
I don't know the word, but most things are on a loan here, I've noticed.
That's crazy. It's funny you say that. I just saw a colleague of mine from years back, and he did a Facebook post just this couple of days ago about how much it costs to rent a Bentley for the day. It was like $1,500. And then how much does it cost to pull up next to the plane on the tarmac, $500 or whatever. How much was it to put a sticker on the side of the plane that was your business name to look like a billionaire for a day? And basically it was like, a couple $1,000 is like going ching. So you take the pictures of that and people, buy in.
I haven't told you, like, it didn't hit me. I was in Charlotte, North Carolina a couple weeks ago. And the first thing I noticed was I was like, a lot of Hondas, Toyotas, Fords walking around. Yet you come to Miami, it's all like Lamborghini and outrageous cars. So now I haven't told you, I have a Honda. So I'm definitely not the norm here in terms of my car choice.
Yeah, Miami definitely has a lot of that, but on the surface, that's kind of what attracts a lot of people to it. That hype, that appearance of lavishness. Yeah. There's a lot of elbow grease that makes that run around. There's been a very huge influx of newcomers in the last few years because of very loose COVID restrictions here in Miami, and really South Florida in general. Florida has attracted a lot of out of state buyers and people who just want to live here because they have the option of remote work now. It's a lot more viable after COVID, which I think is one of the biggest silver linings of the pandemic for digital workers and freelancers, especially. So that's attracted a lot of people from all sorts of places, that sort of lavishness that we just kind of talked about. But, under the hood, once you start really diving deeper into the communities, you'll see that there's a lot of like hard work and elbow grease and creativity being put into the city and being put into, into that kind of help that perspective thrive and survive. And it attracts more people as a result.
A hilarious example of that, Livio, is part of the conference is there's a WeWork, then there's Pure Roast, and they're literally right next to each other. But so on the surface, you'd think like, let me go pay $500 a month to be part of WeWork, join the happy hours, have the social event. But then Pure Roast, the coffee's on the cheaper side, and there's free Wi-Fi. And so where's our co-working section going to be held? Pure Roast. You don't even have to come buy the coffee. You can come just work with us. So I think that's an example of how, on the surface, right, Miami can look like this lavish, crazy place, but there's some grinders under the surface.
Lots of grinders.
Exactly.
Well, what's interesting about that is, I spent some time doing one of these sessions like this with Cammie out in Houston, and we talked about how amazing and important it is to find the humans like yourselves especially when you have a big city, like Miami's a large city too, that helps you find those places, those deals, those opportunities, because sometimes when you're new, all you see is the big shiny objects to go. WeWork is a good example, to go to, and so you think that's your option. And to be able to connect with and get mentoring, from people like going, yeah, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with going to WeWork, or there's nothing wrong with going to, some of the other places, but this is where a lot of locals go. And so you can really hang out with your local peers. And that's one of the biggest things like I said before, that I really love about Freelance Business Week is it helps bond and bring together the local freelancers. And I'm noticing some common thread through the larger cities and it makes sense that the freelance space in these larger cities can be very siloed in that, because it can be tough. It's like going, oh, there's a really cool thing, but it's all the way up in, this probably isn't how it's said there, and I apologize, in Fort Lauderdale, because I know that's further up north, and I'm not going to drive all the way up there for a 30 or 45-minute meeting. Whereas as Freelance Business Week grows, there could potentially be something up there for a day and something in different areas of the city to where people can still access and still get this community and camaraderie and not have to be left out just because they live on the opposite side of town.
Yeah, it's always been something we're very cognizant of in Miami. Well, it's also because Fort Lauderdale, for reference, is the next county over, which is, in fact, if you think of Greater Miami, which is like downtown Brickell, and where like Wynwood and Midtown, where all those all the big, all the hype kind of happens, right?
Okay.
That's about 30 minutes to 45 minutes away. So that's something we're very cognizant of, especially as we're trying to kind of expand that the reach that we have over here. So it definitely kind of fragments the community, but at the same time, people are also very interested in seeing what's happening over here, and kind of taking a piece of what's happening over here and replicate it elsewhere. And that's something that we've seen with the growth of Miami tech, especially recently. There are different technology pockets growing around South Florida, and in big part because of the explosion of growth that's happened over here as well. So it's just it's just more and more opportunity for anybody who really just wants to grab a slice of the pie and take it somewhere else.
Yeah. And I think, Livio, the fact that the sessions on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday are after work is actually a way to help bring the fragmented groups together, because it seems little, but if you're working somewhere else, you can't just go drive into Miami. And even little things like traffic now is actually pretty bad. Parking can be pretty expensive.
Here.
And so, so if you're 30 minutes outside the city, it's going to be pretty costly to come into the city for a conference that's, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Whereas for us, the spaces that we're looking at, also the parking's probably going to be free, or it's going to be very cheap because it's going to be after hours. Yeah. So it's definitely, Livio and I, when we grab dinner together, we do not go to Paper Fish or whatever those places are called, Livio, that it's $50 for an experience.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Ship food, pretty cheap. Or ship food, not that much of it.
Awesome. The other thing I want to talk about real quick is why you guys even got into this. I mean, Livio, I know you've gone to the freelance conference, and you've been a part of organizing the last 2 years in the virtual side of Freelance Business Week in Miami. And now we have Matthew in here as well. So what do you guys feel the value is for you guys putting your time and effort into creating this event for your community?
You want to go ahead first, Livio?
I'm sure Matt has a splendid answer for this, but mine is also mine is very simple, right? For me, a big part of why I started freelancing in the first place is because I didn't really have any sustainable alternative due to a lot of personal circumstances that I don't necessarily have the time to get into right now that I would love to share. But it really came down to, I'm an immigrant, and a lot of my circumstances where you're an immigrant, you really have to figure out a lot of things yourself because you don't have the same access to certain, benefits or jobs as a lot of other people who were born here or have a certain legal status here have. So I started freelancing out of necessity, primarily because the jobs that I had access to after college were not going to pay me a livable wage, which is one big problem that is just across the board. It's a huge systemic problem with the job market, right? And freelancing offered me an alternative to those jobs, the $7 to $8 to $10 an hour jobs. Instead, I could get much fewer for anywhere between $30 to $50 if I was efficient enough with my work, right? As a freelance writer when I started out, and through that process, I'm a freelance technologist now because I learned how to code and incorporated that into my freelance business. But throughout that whole process, I took a lot of hard knocks, and it was a very, very lonely road because there weren't a lot of other freelancers in Miami, at least that were publicly stating themselves as freelancers. They were either pretending to be agencies or working under the guise of somebody else, of something else. But I would say that I was very I was one of the few people in Miami that openly said they were freelancers, and it was a very, very lonely road. So a big part of me is to bring people together and say, hey, this road doesn't have to be lonely. This road doesn't have to be lonely. There's a lot of benefit that comes with connecting with each other. And when I first went to FreeCon was when I really, really felt that sense of like, hey, this is a movement, and it doesn't have to be a lonely journey. There are other people doing the same thing for the same reasons that you are. And meeting other people that are doing that is probably one of the most empowering things anybody who's on this journey can do to just keep going and succeed even further.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah, that's pretty much why. It's pretty much why I'm still here, and I'm doing it again. Every other year.
Yeah, and I'd add, I think from my end, I think freelancers from a personal relational perspective, they've kind of always cut through the bullshit. So, I've lived in 7 cities now. I've not been a let's stay in one place. And I actually wish I was, to be honest. But so I've been in San Francisco, Seattle, Singapore, Miami. I've been kind of everywhere. And the only common thread I've had is that the people I love to collaborate with generally cut through the bullshit. And usually when it comes to freelancers, we kind of have to. And so, I think the common thread is there's always this necessity factor. But for me, I had to freelance. Somebody I had to freelance to make money in college, and I couldn't do it in a normal internship perspective. Then I have jumped in between corporate and venture-backed founder and all this kind of stuff. But the common thread has always been, I kind of like the freelancers the best. And so everywhere I've gone, I've always tried to, accumulate, right? Where is the freelance community? Now, listen, it's like anything. There's the goods and bads of everything. I just noticed with freelancers, because we've had to be so scrappy and survivalist, usually we cut through the bullshit. So, I think Miami is actually the first place that I've actively built, a freelance network, in real life. Usually it's all had to be digital and virtual. And usually, not to bring it up, but the Ukraine situation, we had freelancers impacted by that. So I have freelancers in every single continent. So I'm just excited to see how Miami embraces this. And honestly, this probably doesn't sound too published or formal, but if Miami doesn't jump ahead of this wave, they're so dumb, because Miami is such a perfect city for freelancers if Miami wants to jump on that wave.
Yeah, with the intersect of so many different industries, the great opportunities to build community here. All the little sub communities already exist. Between all that, as Matt has seen himself, I first met him before the big technology boom happened. Literally a few months before the pandemic, he moved here. I met him a few months into the pandemic because of Freelance Business Week. In fact,
me too.
And he shared this vision as a newcomer, 2 years ago, and I'm I've been here for 15 plus years, And this is exactly what I see. And the fact that I have a newcomer with all this experience working with freelancers in every other city that sees the same thing about my city was like, I was pretty ecstatic about that. So we were like instant friends. So
yeah, we still didn't like have an agenda or anything. We kind of in typical corporate response, we wasted our time for 3 hours just walking around grabbing lunch and stuff. So
and just talking. We were just talking. It's like, you look at that building. Yeah, that building is great. So that building has a lot to do with the local economy, and this is how it ties in, and then this and that, and then this is the sky blue. I don't know, but we were instant friends, and we were just talking all day about freelancing, communities, and people, and immigration, and all that jazz. So that was great.
See, that just warms my heart, because to me, that's what really creates your relationship and your connection, is finding all those tidbits about each other and, connecting the dots, and so that there's something to build on moving forward. And, I hope every single Freelance Business Week has sessions, even if they're virtual. Like I said, I know some of the cities are really sticking to virtual. They're having just other COVID issues maybe, but I really hope that even as we move forward, is that there's always a session, multiple sessions, where freelancers can get together, and talk business and talk, talk about their isolation, talk about whatever it is that they need to talk about, and find their people.
There's something. Sorry, keep going, Emily.
No, I was just gonna say, I love when I get to hear, and Livio, I know you've said it before too, where I met this person and that person at this event, and we still connect.
Yeah.
To me, that's worth all of it. Go ahead, Matt.
No, there's something funny about the freelance economy, where like it should be transactional, right? Like it should be the most transactional form of employment. Like technically, people think at least freelancers hop into a project, leave, get a new client, hop in, leave, get a new client. And the reality, it's actually been the most long-term sort of network I've ever been in. So I'm interested to see the dynamic, because in most of the cities I've lived in, they're usually pretty transient. So like San Francisco, you show up for a year, you make your money, you leave. You show up for 2 years, you make your money, you leave. Miami actually is also looked at as a transient city, especially looking from an outsider. So I'm interested to see how the freelance economy can actually kind of keep people from not being transient, or actually build in terms of from a long-term perspective. I'm interested. Data's not out, but I'm interested to see how we can sort of help make Miami less transactional and less transient.
Yeah, I think a big problem of that. Sorry, Emily.
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. A big thing about that, we talk a lot about the hype cycles here in Miami. Miami, like we've already talked about, as we talked about the lavish lifestyles and whatnot, Miami is a city very prone to hype. And wherever there's hype, it brings in a lot of money, and it makes the city grow in more ways than one, sometimes in good ways and in bad ways. But in the context of freelancing, right, and I think something that there's a really great opportunity in finding ways to measure the contribution of freelancers to a local economy. And I think that because there's still a very surface level understanding of freelancing at the institutional level, whether that is governments, corporations, or researchers, there's no clear framework on how to measure the impact that freelancers have in a city. So I think that's something that I'd be very excited to see as kind of the movement grows and the knowledge of freelancing grows and becomes a much more legitimate, not just a legitimate economy, but a legitimate topic of study, right? It's like freelancing as a thing humans do that makes economies run, right? I think that's something that we could very easily tap into in Miami, just by the sheer fact that there's so much moving through the city and so many other industries kind of intersecting with each other, and most importantly, that communities are just so closely knit with each other. So, yeah.
Awesome. How would we collect that data? I've actually sat down with a couple of people in the city of Austin many years ago. I bet it was about 5 years ago, asking that kind of question. How do we identify how much of our local economy is thanks to freelance business owners? And the problem with it is, not that I want to get on a great big long tangent, but is they're either considered a business, and so they get lumped in with all of the other businesses. Not bad, but it doesn't allow us to segment out and get it, or they're not considered a business at all. And so either way, we lose our ability to track.
Yeah.
And then on top of all that, you have at least some segment of freelance business owners that, they don't get their business license or they don't do the things that they need to do. So they're untrackable.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one, but I'd love to know that number too.
Yeah. I don't think any of us have an answer to it, but
No, I'm
Well-
ready. No, I'm ready to
Oh.
take this one on. Oh
there
man,
you
this
go.
is an easy. No. So I mean, listen, at the simplest level is GDP, right? It's what is the economic output that the freelance economy has brought into either the country, the state, the city. You want to narrow it however you want to, right?
Right.
And there's usually like two forces driving that. There's business owners, and then there's the actual talent. And they're always in this constant chicken and egg, where like who's more important, the business owner or the employee? And to be honest, they both need each other. And so when we look at what a freelancer is able to do, a freelancer is able to enable more business owners to create more business value to then hire more people. And so when we look at sort of some use cases of how to make that tangible, the freelance economy right now is a $1.3 trillion industry, meaning people have spent $1.3 trillion on freelancers. What does that mean? I don't know. We have to break it down even more. And so this is where we can get wicked geeky in terms of like, why would you hire a freelancer, right? They're faster, they're better, they're cheaper at the end of the day. And when we look at sort of some use cases here in Miami, and this is where, we've been able to directly see freelancer connected with business owner. Freelancers enable business owners to compete better, faster, and more cost efficient than other people. And so one example is we had a freelancer help one of the local coffee shops here chase an opportunity to go international. Now that means that here in Miami, there's going to be more jobs created because this coffee shop is going to be able to get larger because they had freelancers to help them be faster, better, and cheaper at what they do. To me, that's how we measure it, right? And freelancers, this word's probably not going to be the right one, but freelancers are the mean to get there. Like freelancing in itself, I don't think is a good thing, but the ability to be better, faster, cheaper to create business value creates more jobs. And to me, that's what I'm passionate about is how Miami can tap into freelancers to create more jobs at the end of the day.
All I see is wins.
Right? Like it's. And there's so many tangible cases. If you look at Miami, one of the tough parts about it is, there's this middle income trap where it's now getting wicked expensive and there's no middle class here. So what do you have to do? You need to find cheaper ways to actually drive value. And so if you're a business owner here, you can't afford a $15,000 agency, but you can probably afford a $1,000 to $2,000 freelancer who works at that agency and is going to do the same damn work they would have when they were in the agency. So literally all we're doing is we're saying, fuck the middle layers that are literally making costs so high that only large companies compete. Let's take that out and let's connect the people directly with the business owners. And we're giving them means to compete better. That's really all the freelance economy is.
I like to think it's more than that, but that's probably a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
It creates more because you're able to compete faster, better, more cost efficient.
I definitely agree with the allowing businesses to be more nimble. I'm in the middle of one of those right now, working with a company that it was faster for them to have me pull together my freelance team and just pay me what that freelance team would be. And then it was to go through, the processes, their own red tape, and it's there for a reason and it serves them except for when they want or need to move quickly.
Yeah. Yep. So that's how I'd measure it. Maybe Livio will make that a session of how to. But and Emily, this is one of the big problems with the freelance economy is we're fractured, right? We have the client side and the freelancer side, and the freelancers usually aren't the ones speaking like me because I sound like a cold-hearted business person. But then the business people usually aren't going and talking to the freelancers because they don't care about the freelancers; they care about their own bottom line. And kind of this is where we sit, being like, hey, a-holes, we need both of each other. So let's sort of have our difference of views come together.
Yeah, there's an interdependence of outcomes, right? I think that's the
nice way to put it.
Yeah, I think that's the key component here is the interdependence of outcomes. One, the freelancers being like, hey, I need this project and I have a skill, I need to sell it, I need to make my living. And and the business owners are like, hey, I need these outcomes because I can't afford an agency that's going to give me those outcomes, so I need something smaller that will give me maybe not the same quality of outcomes that a fully staffed agency would, but definitely someone who understands that specific engagement or that specific project and can get me similar outcomes for my business, whether that is like set me up with a website, give me a new marketing plan, hey, I need someone to do some accounting or financial projections, or someone give me a rebrand. You could go to an agency and as a business owner and charge and pay them 10 to 20K for a logo and a brand kit, but a freelancer could probably do that for 1/10 of the price very easily. Well, not to downplay the price of a freelancer, but all I'm saying is that it would be a lot.
Because the time, Livio, because the agency would take 6 months, the freelancer would take 1 month. So that's why it's cheaper, not for the freelancer, but for the company.
Yeah. And all the fluff, I think the other thing that a lot of companies are figuring out is they don't need all the fluff that the agencies design or build in. A lot of times just reports, it's like, okay, they analyze something and now we've got a 15 page report on what they analyzed, when what a freelancer is probably going to do is do, like you said, basically the same work to do the research and then jump on a phone call with you. And here's the points. Here's what I learned. Maybe document it in a Word doc or something like that, so that it is documented. And then let's move on and get work done.
I think, and to me, that's the most beautiful part, right? A lot of people told me is like, hey, you can't just like live off of like personal relationships and all that stuff, or like, hey, you have to work really hard to do a certain thing, which is true. It's not like, there's a degree of truth to that. But at the same time, I think my favorite part of being a freelancer has been the ability to, build individual relationships with people, not just people that are roughly doing the same work that I am, but also people who need the work that I do, right? And I get to build relationships with these people, around the work that we're doing, of course, but at the same time being like, hey, the fact that I am a person, I am not an agency with some with some pretentious or some obscure name. I am a person that I'm sitting here trying to help another person get the outcomes that they need. I think that's like one of the most beautiful parts of being a freelancer, because instead of the agency that talks to you through an email and the 15-page report is like, hey, just pick up the phone, call me, and we'll make time so I can help you.
And here's my verified book of business, right? This isn't an agency that you don't know who's doing the work. Like, if you've been bad, right? Like, as a freelancer, it kind of sucks because people are going to know that you're bad, or you might not have a book of business. Where the agency, unfortunately, they probably have a massive, portfolio list, yet you don't know who's doing the work. So, Livio, maybe that's actually one of the whole things we say is like, cut through the hype of the agency, work directly with the person who needs you. And Miami might be ideal since we're a hype city.
Yeah, it's in my best interest to become my clients. I'm a collaborator, so why not do that?
Well, guys, I think I'm going to call it there, just because everybody out there that has been watching this, I think you have a pretty good feel of what conversations are going to be like, how real they're going to be. And these two gentlemen are absolutely going to do their best. I have no doubt. I know both of them quite well, actually, to make sure that you meet your people and you walk away from the Freelance Business Week in Miami with better strategies, with connections, and maybe even a whole new mindset of how you want to look forward for your 2022 and building your business. So if you haven't got your ticket yet, go to freelancebusinessweek.com. You can find the information on Miami. You can find the information on the national virtual event that will be happening kind of at the same time throughout the week. And anything else that we need to real quickly share or tell your audience?
Not for me. Just be excited. Honestly, just be proud about the fact that you're a freelancer and come meet other people, come meet other freelancers who are doing some exciting work as well. Because if you're a freelancer, other freelancers do really cool stuff, because your stuff is the coolest thing. So yeah, just come around, plant a flag, come meet some community. That's all we really want to do. Bring everyone together and say, hey, that's where I belong.
I like that. All right. Thank you both so much, Livio, Matthew, and I will see you guys during Freelance Business Week.
Cheers, y'all.